From the report on Calgary's water woes to the financial impact of an independence push, the toll of taking holiday time, and heated rivalry heating up the airwaves. Our Primetime This Week panel is in. And joining us this evening, Alex Boyd, Alberta-based national reporter for the Toronto Star, and Ellen Parker, founder and CEO of Parker PR in Calgary. Good evening to you both. And as Calgarians contend with the latest water crisis, a new report on the city's water infrastructure is raising a lot of eyebrows. An independent review panel is linking deferred maintenance and weak risk management to the rupture of the Bearspaw feeder main in the summer of 2024, a line that ruptured again just over a week ago. And the report says an almost identical pipe that burst in 2004 was a warning that went ignored.
To repeatedly do that from one council to the next, to the next, to the next, that's what gets you into this deficit of investment.
Among the panel's urgent recommendations, stabilizing the Bearspaw feeder main and enhancing monitoring to reduce failures, strengthening contingency plans, and accelerating construction of a parallel line made of steel. It's also calling for a dedicated water utility with a single executive in charge and an independent oversight board, a measure that may be too costly for some municipal politicians.
So Calgarians on one hand are demanding that we reduce the number of employees that we are hiring, and yet I have an expert panel demanding that we grow the number of employees.
$3 billion in assets, $1 billion a year in revenue. This is not an inconsequential operation. And so it needs to have a dedicated management team.
And while the report does not lay blame to one specific government or individual, there is still the issue of accountability.
Calgarians are expecting our council administration to solve this problem for good.
While progress is being made on completing current repairs, city officials say water usage continues to strain the system, and residents still being urged to conserve to ensure there's enough to absorb demand in the event of emergencies like fighting fires. All right, ladies, you're both in Calgary, and so Alex, I'll start with you. Restrictions are expected to continue into next week. The plea to limit usage, as we just heard, it's being repeated. What's your read on how Calgarians are responding to that message?
You know, at least from where I'm sitting, it seems like the response to these calls to conserve water have been a little bit more muted than they were last summer. Whether or not that's, post-holiday malaise or what is kind of hard to measure, but the numbers do seem to reflect that people are not reducing in the same way that we've seen in the past. The city has been saying for days now, we need everyone to use less water, but we remain kind of in that red zone, the zone that the city says is not sustainable. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot this week is just how hard it is to get messages out like this these days. Media viewership is down, with thanks to everyone who is watching this, but viewership is down, and social media is so siloed. I think when, it comes to the city trying to get a message like this out, it's harder than it's ever been.
Ellen, columnists are certainly paying attention, and there are some calling for heads to roll, that senior members of administration should be fired. What do you see coming of that issue of accountability?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about that in my world, among my clients. I don't think it's productive for our columnists to be going off about, who's going to fire the city manager first and things like that. I don't think that's effective. I think it's an opportunity now to really think about, all these councillors ran on, let's deal with the basics. Let's get back to what we actually have to do as a city councillor. Fix the roads, fix the infrastructure. I was shocked to learn that we knew about this problem years and years ago. I know that one of the former councillors of Ward 1 dealt with this very directly and put a motion forward to approve a budget to take care of this with the last city council, and they rejected it. So, their accountability has to be somewhere. I don't believe it's on one particular person, but we have someone managing our city. It should be run like a business. This definitely needs a project manager. Thank goodness we have this panel made up of very smart business people and experts. So we have a roadmap, and we're going to have to pay for it, and it has to be a priority. And we have an opportunity to be a leader in North America, because this is something that we're seeing across the entire country and beyond. So we need to take care of our infrastructure. And I hope I haven't gone on a tangent, but those are my thoughts.
No worries, no worries. So, Alex, this newly elected Calgary City Council has a lot on its plate, not only with this latest rupture, but also navigating that road forward. What do you see riding on how they perform?
I mean, I think it's going to be tough. To your point, this is a very freshly elected councillors. There's a lot of rookies. A lot of them came in saying that they wanted to address some of these core issues. But man, what an issue to start with, really throwing them into the deep end, except not the deep end because we're not allowed to fill pools probably right now. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them right now. But I mean, this isn't going to be easy. Mayor Farkas is saying that we're not going to be sparing any expense when it comes to not only fixing this, but building redundancy into the system so it doesn't happen again. But we're talking tens of millions of dollars here. And, to quote pollster Janet Brown, Albertans are not necessarily conservatives so much as they are tax averse. We want all the things, but we don't necessarily want to pay for it. So how these councillors are going to come in and say, yes, we're going to deal with the basics, we're not going to do anything extra, but also we need you to pay, tens of millions of dollars. That's a tough position to be in. So I guess we're going to see how that goes for them.
Yep, just the start of the term. Okay, next up, the group driving a petition for a referendum on Alberta independence, now actively holding town halls, collecting signatures, and we heard from economist Moshe Lander off the top on how all of this talk of potential separation could have a trickle-down impact on the province. Alan, how do you see dialogue around this playing in the business community, especially if this petition is successful and the government sends it to a referendum?
Yeah, I think many of us sort of overlooked this and we thought, oh, there's nothing to be concerned about. And I'm hopeful that there is still nothing to be concerned about. But the sentiment is growing. We're seeing, 18 to 35-year-olds growing sentiment toward this, which is just interesting to see this happen. Within the business community, I know the mid-sized businesses here in Alberta are many entrepreneurs, many family-run businesses, lots of entrepreneurs who are impacted by the federal government decision-making around the industry here. I don't believe we're going to really lose major investment at this point because, like I said, I'm hopeful it's not a real risk. But people are talking about it, and I think the important thing is we need to just listen to people. We need to consider different ideas, which you guys are great at doing as a media station. So yeah, different opinions, different rumblings, and I've been very focused on work and not so focused on this, but I think that's kind of what I'm hearing in the community.
Well, and Alex, in the wake of the successful Forever Canadian petition, what degree of debate do you see shaping up over this push?
I think I'm in the same boat. I think we were all a little bit surprised to see that it has become the talker that it has been. I think we all dismissed this for a long time, kind of poo-pooed the idea that this would gain steam. And to be clear, I don't think we're in the neighborhood yet of Alberta actually being in danger of separating. But the fact that this is such a conversation that there are teams forming, on both quote unquote side, is going to have an impact. And Alberta doesn't have to vote to separate before we start seeing an economic impact, a social impact, a political impact. And so the fact that this has gained steam, I think, is surprising. These petitions, are building huge teams. They're building volunteers. They're building databases of people who are on, believe in what they're doing. And so, again, this is it's galvanizing the argument on both sides. So should this go to a referendum, this is the organizing that needs to be done. We're already seeing happen in real time.
Indeed. Okay, time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, being able to switch off for holidays and the Canadian hockey drama, drawing international attention. More from our Friday panel in a moment. Welcome back. For many, returning to work after the holidays is far from slow and steady and more likely a sprint. According to new numbers from the ADP Canada Happiness in Work Index, just under a third of employees took all their vacation time in 2025, and those who did take a week off report spending nearly 17 hours on average, either preparing or catching up. Workplace experts call that a time-off tax, making it harder to really switch off.
Don't get the same kind of refresh. And you don't come back re-energized and ready to take on what comes at you in the new calendar year.
Heather Haslam says there's lots leaders can do to improve the situation.
Making sure that there's backup, making sure that there's adequate documentation for policies, doing some cross-training.
So where does that leave employees?
Our personalities have this guilt, rest is a 4-letter word, but we don't realize that being productive and engaged and doing better at our job requires it.
Now, in December, Alberta just a tick under the national workforce happiness score of 6.8 out of 10. Alex, what do you make of this time off tax terminology?
Oh gosh, been there. Every time there's a long weekend, you still do 5 days of work, but you just fit it into 4 days. So definitely relate to this. It's not surprising that Alberta is also a little bit lower as well. Obviously, we have a provincial culture very tied to industry, very tied to work. So I can imagine it's a little bit harder to, drag Albertans away from their desk, and they probably spend a little bit more time catching up once they get back. I find some of the numbers around how Gen Z is rethinking work, though, very interesting. So as younger generations come into the workplace, start rethinking their relationships to work, I'm curious how this changes.
Ellen, how do you see this landing on the radar of employers?
Yeah, I think it's really important for employers. It's our responsibility to make sure that people are feeling rested and valued so they can contribute in meaningful ways to the organization. There's definitely, with the Brene Brown, with the trends of the new year, thinking about goals, and so many of the literature we have available to us really shows that the data does say that we need to be mindful of our teams. Processes are king, ensuring that we have processes through the entire year. So work isn't just when we have a time to relax and it's not so busy. We can have processes in place so we can prepare, so it can avoid those times like we referenced with long weekends where we're all scrambling. So it's absolutely 100% on the employer's shoulders to make sure that this doesn't happen.
All right, well said. Okay, one more quick topic, and that is the buzz over a Canadian hockey drama.
Is it sinking in how big this show is?
No.
Hudson Williams on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon this week, discussing his character in Heated Rivalry, the breakout show about hockey rivals developing an off-ice romance, winning praise and sparking discussions.
To have this kind of a romance story portrayed inside the context of men's professional hockey at the highest level, I think will have an impact.
The show has exploded in popularity and is drawing attention in Tinseltown.
You guys made amazing original shows that everyone couldn't stop talking about until that gay hockey show from Canada came along.
And go ahead, Connor.
Based on a book by a Canadian author, Heated Rivalry set and filmed in Canada.
We're not just a production house for Hollywood productions to come here and shoot things. We can generate shows that can find a global audience.
Heated Rivalry, produced by Crave, that is a subsidiary of Bell Media, which of course owns CTV. Alan, what strikes you about the degree of attention this production is generating?
I think that it's just a really kind of interesting show. I talked about this with my employees. I have 2 boys who play hockey. I have lots of male colleagues who play hockey, and they're not watching it apparently, but it's they love the idea of just, challenging this toxic masculinity that we see in some of these sports and in hockey culture. There's an amazing article in the Globe and Mail that my friend Christina Regier wrote about hockey culture and how there's a shift away from that toxicity, and it's encouraging more inclusivity. And I think that it's really interesting, and I'm proud that it's happening here in Canada, and we're seeing this show that showcases Canada.
Alex, how do you see this success potentially shifting the conversation over inclusivity in sports?
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder, because something that comes up a lot, I think, when people are discussing this show is the fact that it is such a phenomenon and everyone loves it at a time when we haven't seen an openly out NHL player. So the culture that it's portraying is a little bit at odds of what we're seeing in the real world, of what we've seen from actual professional athletes. So whether or not this normalizes the conversation, makes it a little bit easier for someone to, be open about their personal life or what they're doing, it remains to be seen. But everyone is talking about it, and that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, the talking indeed. Okay, we have to leave our talk. We're out of time. Good to see you both. Hope you have an awesome weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.